Now, if you've made it this far with all the parts of working on this job has really been a labor of love. I always think of it, and it's really a good way to look at it. There's one final little thing I wanted to do, and I'll do it with a paintbrush. I wanted to take and renew the finish inside the hub here. And you don't even see that, it's just that I have it apart. I'll just take a brush and brush in a fresh coat of paint on that. The next thing then will be to have a nice cup of coffee here in the shop while that's drying, and get outside before the rain comes. It's supposed to be big rain today. Get outside and get the bike all put back together, and hopefully get outside and take a few pictures of it with the new wheel. Yeah, it looks a little bit nicer with that dressed up. Plus it's that added benefit of being able to clean it a lot easier. And one final little detail item I wanted to do here. Took a little acetone in a bottle cap, and right along the edge here to clean off all the old chain wax and all the old things. As long as we're going to have this apart, and we may as well clean it up to the best of our ability. And you can see the stuff comes right off. It's no secret how to do it. But as I've said all through the video, and actually through all of the videos, that I really do enjoy having nice clean stuff. There's a price to be paid. It takes time. But boy, when you're done. Boy, when you're done. And not to mention, if you're one of these guys that you buy and sell bikes, and I don't, but if you do, the amount of value that you add to a motorcycle by having it clean instead of a grease ball, even in here, once you have something nice and clean, it's just more fun working on it. And a good example is like today. It's going to be cold out in the garage, whatever time we spend out there. But just having it clean, keep in mind acetone does take some types of paint off, not this, not the kind that's on here, but if you have freshly painted gas tanks or something, you don't want acetone anywhere near it. This is a good little way with the Q-tip to just clean everything up. And when it's done, there's just a certain amount of enjoyment you get having something that's as nice as you can possibly make it. And I think that's going to be one of the parts. It's always been one of the parts. And these really are good. The sprockets, they really are. That's a good quality item. Yeah, luckily it warmed up to just about 30 degrees now, so it's not terrible out here in the tundra. But bring out all the parts and we're ready to put this back together. And it isn't raining yet. First thing here is going to be to get, let me just do this methodically here. I want to have a little bit of grease around the edge here, because what it does, it just holds the parts together, especially when the grease is this cold. And this has a hollow axle spacer that goes in there. The rubber, the little bumpers that go in here. Again, I always leave the parts on one side of the motorcycle just to make it easy. At this point in time, I'm not looking to spend the whole day out here doing this. Like to get it put back together. If it isn't pouring rain, shoot some pictures. See how this is going to look, the final thing. Been a long project, but it's really been satisfying for me, because it's just one of the things I know. Now that bearing is a sealed bearing. That's pretty much going to be ready. I'm going to put a little grease on the axle and on the caps that go on here. See, in other words, these always want to fall off. This is always the trick. Let me get these parts. These parts can really be cantankerous when you're trying to put them back on. If you have just the slightest amount of grease around the edge. especially when it's ice cold like this. And even these, because when we're done, we'll just clean off the extra grease. Anything that helps just temporarily hold these parts in place. When we go to put the axle on, it'll work to our favor. And of course the axle, I always want to have just a little bit, just make it slide in there a little bit easier, keep it from rusting. Again, because this is a bike that we do take apart a lot more often than if you had a touring bike. Yeah, even if you have a touring bike, there's no point. That's going to ultimately go on there. And now it's a question of just getting over there and setting this up. And always the part that can be a little bit of a struggle if you're by yourself. Chain is around. Now it's pretty funny. Of all the things I've forgotten, I've done this enough times to know, I forgot to put the brake stay in. But that's the wonderful thing about video. You can figure some of this out without having to pay some tremendous price. Okay. There we go. Now from this point on, it just couldn't be any easier. Bolt the nut on, bolt the caliper on, we're going to be good to go. Now, I haven't even tightened up the bolts yet, and I'm really liking the way this looks, because basically with the dark blue color, the bike looked too dark all the years I've had it. Kind of looked too dark anyway. Anyway, I know these bolts do have a dedicated place. Yes, this is the front one. I should remember that. And this back caliper can be a little tricky, but of course, once you do it a few times, now it's only a question of tightening up the bolts, torquing this down, adjusting the chain. I really like the way that looks. That's really going to be, you know, it's all in the eye of the beholder, of course, but I just always think it's these little things. Now, I didn't realize I was going to see in there as much as I did. You do see in there quite a bit. So that's going to be nice when that's a little bit nicer looking than when the finish on these things is sitting. This is an 7-8-year-old bike. It starts to get a little dull and fuzzy. You know how the paint on, when you have paint on the flat black cars, they start turning whitish. Always nice if it looks, I like it the way that looks anyway. Now, I like all the little details that we did on this. They starting to really, well, we haven't got it out. There's no sunlight today anyway, even if we had sun. This is a good little tip for anybody that lives in a cold weather climate, because these bikes will not be getting ridden as much as in the summer, and we never know when the weather's going to break here. I always try to take the chain when I'm going to put them in their rack and keep the battery tender on them. I always about once a month, spin the back wheel on the chain and put plenty of WD-40 on it, just to keep the chain from rusting while we're not using the bike on a regular basis. This gives a lot of life to the chain, plus you don't get those rusty spots and tight spots, so you minimize the amount of it anyway. Cheap insurance. Now we're looking forward to breaking in that new tire if the weather ever breaks. You can see we still have a ton of ice and snow, and it's been cold and who knows what, but it'll give me something to dream about. I really like the way that came out, and that coordinates with the blue, I think, really, really nice. Sets off the gold sprocket in the back. A lot of things that the black wheels didn't do. And anytime we have to do a tire change now or any kind of work on the back of the bike, it's just whistle clean, all torqued down nice. It's ready for many, many thousands more miles of really having a lot of fun with our friends. Now I don't know when we're going to have time to do the front wheel. I only could do one wheel at a time because we did this through the holiday season when we had a lot of other stuff going on here, but I really, really do like the way that looks. That to me was a project that I had thought about, and I had thought of some of the other possibilities. I'm glad I went with the custom silver, and I'm glad I got enough to do 3 or 4 more wheels. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed sitting through this whole project, and thanks a lot for watching.